Each year, come January, students are faced with the pressure of finding a new home. But they often don't realize that some of the homes they look at are in violation of housing standards. There is an organization that aims to help students with these concerns.
So SPAT is the Student Property Assessment Team. It is a group of students who are trained by city property inspectors to be able to go into student houses and look for violations of the Kingston minimum property standards. They were started in 2005 after the Principal's Task Force on Community Relations, I think, released a report suggesting that we create them. So we did, and have been partnering with the city since then to help train these students.
What are some of the most common issues you see in ghetto houses?
A lot of the issues are cosmetic, cracks in the walls, holes, counters that are so old they can't even be cleaned anymore and so are having a buildup of germs. Drafty windows, they need to be reasonably draft free, so some that don't even meet that level. And then you start getting into the larger concerns, wiring that hasn't been properly updated, old furnaces, that sort of thing. So the houses that even look good on the surface may not actually be a very good or safe house, and that's where you can have SPAT come in and look at some of those things.
We decided to put SPAT to the test. We brought them to my house on Aberdeen to see them in action.
Hi. Hi. We've had some issues in the past, but we've been trying to resolve them.
Because the sink is there and water can fall on the floor or whatnot, you need a floor that is water resistant. And that being said, you can't have the cracks underneath. And although it looks a little varnished, it has definitely worn off. Easiest thing to do would be, I would say, to just completely, you would have to put some tile on it or laminate or something of that sort.
Okay.
And then
yeah, because if the water gets into the wood, if it saturates the wood, then it breeds mold, and mold of any variety is not good for you.
yeah.
Yeah, I definitely see some mold down here in the corner. And this drain isn't on it. And the ring is definitely has been eroded. So you're probably gonna have some leaking, maybe downstairs.
As far as issues in kitchens go, what are, I guess, one of the most common issues you'll find in student houses?
Definitely leaking tap. The floor is not impermeable to water.
Even
Definitely caulking around the actual sink, and in the back here, most houses don't have this required 3 inches behind the sink to prevent water from getting through. Most of them just go straight to the wall, and it just goes down, and then underneath here it gets all moldy and disgusting.
Well, we found in a few of the houses that a lot of the appliances, because these houses weren't designed for this type of appliances that we have, are plugged in with extension cords. And even though it might not seem like a big deal to have your microwave on an extension cord, it's
There's so
a pretty big hazard.
As far as like exposed wire goes, this is one of the, I guess, outlets or
and that one on the bottom too.
Yeah, and the one on the bottom, and they're used quite often. Like this is a high traffic room for us, so I guess that's a cause for concern that we should talk to our landlord about.
Yeah, when a student's looking for their home, the biggest thing to remember is to take your time and not to rush. A lot of students get really panicked. In first year, you get this sense that if you don't sign, first week in January, then you're going to be living in the cold the rest of the year.
We were freaking out because everyone kept saying if you don't get a house by the end of January, you won't find one, you'll be stuck with one you don't like. And because our expectations going in were so high, that when we finally saw like houses, there were some really poorly kept houses, and so our expectations got lowered. And then when we were like looking through houses, some of my housemates were willing to settle.
There's a housing surplus right now in Kingston, so there are more houses for rent than there are students who want to live in them. So students really have the opportunity to take some time and find something they're really happy with. The other thing they should be aware of is the resources that are out there for them. There are a lot of them, and they aren't used as much as they could be. I know as a 20-year-old when I first signed my lease, I really had no idea what I was signing. So it's a good idea to go through it with someone who may actually know what to look for. It's a legal document. You want to make sure you understand what you're agreeing to. So use the resources that are there and take your time.
We would have to call the landlord. So calling the landlords was kind of intimidating. Some of them I couldn't really understand them on the phone. And so, yeah. And then others, not really. Some of them are really genuinely nice. So they were really helpful and like they told us a lot of information, but like other landlords didn't really give you much information as to like how well like upkept the house was and stuff like that.
As far as people who are currently living in houses and having issues with that, the best thing is to make sure you document any problems that you have with the landlord. Simple phone calls are not usually enough. If you're having issues, write a letter and mail it to the landlord and keep a copy for yourself. That's really important because if you ever get to a point where you have to go to court or need evidence against the landlord, that list of documents that you've provided will really be helpful. And again, there are a lot of resources. Queen's Legal Aid, all students pay a $4.50 mandatory student fee, so you pretty much have free legal service. And then both the Municipal Affairs Commission and Queenstown Gown are really important resources.
Knowing that there are services available for you, would you go about the process of finding your house differently a second time around?
Definitely. I'd definitely use like the resources and have like people helping because it was really like stressful on all of us when we were finding our house, and to have people there helping you and making you not freak out would be so much better.
The other thing for students to remember is if you're having problems with your landlord making repairs and they aren't getting done, that's when you can call either SPAT or the city property assessment team, who can go through a house, look for these violations, and then issue a work order directly to the landlord, and the landlord has to fulfill that order. If they don't, the city will take them to court. So it's important to know.
Sign a really cheap lease with a very bad house, call in property standards before you go away for the summer, and when you come back in September you'll have a brand new house with a fixed low rent. And that way we'll start to get more houses in the ghetto cleaned up.
Don't freak out that there are many houses out there and that you will find one that you are absolutely in love with. You just have to be patient.
If you have any questions regarding your own living conditions, or if you would like to contact SPAT, don't hesitate to email them at spat@ams.queensu.ca.
I remember when I lost my